Check, 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 check. Hello, hello.
The Lord be with you. Good evening and welcome to the end of our journey, or very nearly, of Holy Week and Lent. My name is Reverend Melanie Marshbaum, and we are honored that you have joined us this evening for a service of communion and tenebrae to honor Maundy Thursday. Tonight, we remember the spiritual discipline of silence, and we take part in the service of tenebrae, which means the darkness and the shadows. We remember that this was just the beginning Christ's journey. The last night that he would share with his disciples, the ones that he loved the most. And so we gather together in worship this evening. Tenebrae means darkness or shadows. And as we come to the end of Lent, we begin a journey into darkness to a place of deep shadows. Today, we accompany Jesus in his last hours. We witness the cruelties and the suffering he endured. We listen to the words of condemnation and ridicule. In all this, he is innocent. He is the faithful servant of God, doing God's work, bringing the gospel of love and peace and hope. And so in this time, we are invited to walk solemnly and attentively with Christ. Better to know, better to understand, better to be his friend, his disciple, and his witness. Be still in silence and know that God is here in the darkness and in the shadows.
Let's bow our heads. No God can compare with you, O Lord. Your works are awesome. Nations bow down before you. They glorify your name. Your greatness penetrates each moment of our day. Through the night, you care for us. And then as the day dawns, we see your splendor as it fills the heavens. As we arise and we look around us, we give you glory because you empower us to serve you in all that we do. Not a breath passes our lips that we do not know of your presence. We gather tonight to give you our praises, to seek your presence in all that we do. Be pleased with our worship as we honor your name in everything that we do. Amen.
On the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus saying, "Where do you want us to make the preparations for you to eat Passover?" He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is near. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover meal. When it was evening, he took his place with the 12. And while they were eating, he said, "Truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me." And they became greatly distressed and began to say to him one after another, "Surely not I, Lord." He answered, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe be to that one by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born. Judas, who betrayed him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi." He replied, "You have said so." While they were eating, Jesus took a loaf of bread, and after blessing it, he broke it, gave it to the disciples, and said, "Take, eat. This is my body." Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is the blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will never drink again of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom."
This evening, we celebrate communion as we do many Sundays together. And this evening, it will be slightly different because we will receive communion from the back, and our ushers will dismiss us from the back of the sanctuary, moving toward the front of the sanctuary. So please look to your ushers as you are dismissed in just a moment. The scriptures tell us that people will come from east and west and north and south to sit together at the table in the kingdom of God. And tonight, we share a meal together around this table, remembering Christ's sacrifice for us.
So as we gather at the table this evening, this table is for all those who seek and want to know, want to grow, and want to serve the ever-living God. From the prophets and Jesus himself, the invitation to come to the table and to come and know God is spoken over and over again. We hear the words, "Come to me, all of you who need rest. Come and see. Come to me, those of you who are thirsty and are hungry. Come to me, those who need to be healed. Come, those of you who don't have money to buy food or drink. Come. Come and be courageous. Come and see. Come and taste." Over and over, we hear the words of our Lord bidding everyone to come into his presence, to dine and to receive. No one is ever denied. Everyone is invited, and everyone is accepted. Tonight, we too are gathered in God's presence. So come to the table and hear these words again. All of us, everyone, all of you, come into the presence of God. Everyone is welcome.
Let us pray. O God, we are overwhelmed with grief and too tired to cry. O God, we need to hear you saying our names. God, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Spirit, have mercy. O God, our Creator, speak us all back into being. Show us the bonds of love that formed us and hold us. Let them be as iron that enters our souls. For blessed are we who see that in this present darkness it is not all there is. Blessed are we who look for the one, this Jesus dressed as a servant who washes our feet. Blessed are we who say, "I am known, I am loved, I can love again." For you have loved us with an everlasting love. God, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Spirit, have mercy. And as we come before you at this table of grace and love this night, let us all each hear you whispering to us, "Hush, child, let me hold you. You are mine." Amen. We remember this night that on the night that Jesus was betrayed, the last night of his life, he took bread and he broke it. And he gave thanks for it, and he handed it to those seated at the table with him, and he said to them, "Take and eat, for this is my body broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And we remember also that in the same way he took the cup from the table and he poured it out before them. And he said to them, "Drink this cup, all of you. For this cup is the new covenant, sealed in my blood, poured out for everyone for the forgiveness of sins. And as often as you do this, do it in remembrance of me." And so we come together on this night, and we eat of this bread, and we drink of this cup. And each time we do this, we do proclaim Christ's death and resurrection until he returns again in glory. bread of life and the cup of salvation. Thanks be to God.
Let's bow our heads. Gracious God, as Jesus gathered with his disciples and with those he loved, we're gathered here this evening. We share this meal together, and we try to embrace and try to feel and try to understand the mystery of his sacrifice, the mystery of his words, along with trying to understand your love. Help us as we go the next couple of days. Strengthen us, empower us, and give us patience, hopeful patience, as we wait and try to understand all of this. As the disciples were confused that night and maybe a little just kind of set aside a little bit in their thoughts, we too, trying to understand and unravel the mystery of your grace and your love and the power that happened that night. Be with us, O God, is our prayer in the next couple of days to help us understand. And in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee and began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So you could not stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into this time of trial. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again, he went away for the second time and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." Again, he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the 3rd time, saying these words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners." Here ends the second reading.
While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived with him, with a large crowd, with swords and clubs, from the chief priests and elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him." At once he came up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do." Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. Suddenly one of those with Jesus put his hand on his sword, drew it, and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled, which say it must happen in this way?" At that hour, Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me, as though I were a bandit? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. But all this has taken place so that the scriptures of the prophets may be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him and fled. Here ends the third reading.
As soon as it was morning, the chief priest held a consultation with the elders and the scribes and the whole council. They bound Jesus, led him away, and they handed him over to Pilate. Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered them, "You say so." Then the chief priests accused him of many things, and Pilate asked him again, "Have you no answer? See how many charges they bring up against you?" But Jesus made no further reply, and Pilate was amazed. Here ends the fourth reading.
Then the soldiers led him into the courtyard of the palace, that is the governor's headquarters, and they called together the whole cohort, and they clothed him in a purple cloak, And after twisting some thorns into a crown, they placed it on his head. And they began saluting him, "Hail, hail, King of the Jews!" They struck his head with a reed, they spat upon him, and they knelt down in homage to him. After mocking him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him out to crucify him. They compelled a passerby who was coming in from the country to carry his cross. It was Simon of Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus. Then they brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him and divided his clothes among them, casting lots to decide what each should take. It was 9 o'clock in the morning when they crucified him. The inscription of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." And with him they crucified 2 bandits, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying, "Aha, you who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself and come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests, along with the scribes, were also mocking him among themselves and saying, "He saved others, but he cannot save himself. Let the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down from the cross now so that we may see and we may believe." Those who were crucified with him also taunted him. Here ends the 5th reading.
From noon on, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. And about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried with a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani." That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, "This man is calling for Elijah." At once, one of them ran and got a sponge, filled it with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him." Then Jesus cried again with a loud voice and breathed his last. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. After his resurrection, they came out to the tombs and entered the holy city and appeared to many. Now, when the centurion and those with him who were keeping watch over Jesus saw the earthquake and saw what took place, they were terrified and said, "Truly, this man was God's Son." Here ends the 6th reading.
The next day, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember what that impostor said while he was still alive. After 3 days I will rise again. Therefore command the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise, his disciples may go and steal him away and tell people he has been raised from the dead. And the last deception would be worse than the first." And so Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go make it as secure as you can." So they went with the guard and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone. Here ends the 7th reading.